folks. This is Greg Naftzger in for our Whiteside County Soil and Water Conservation District show for this month. And as you heard in the intro, Meghan Pettit is from the Whiteside County Soil and Water Conservation District. Yep. And what's your official title? I always want to get that.
Resource conservationist.
There you go.
Yep.
And what's on your agenda for this morning?
So, preparing your garden for winter. Where it's not quite that time, but we're getting pretty close.
Yeah.
You definitely want to clean up and get rid of any diseased plants. You don't want any of that diseased material getting into the soil in the winter months. But leave the healthy material in there because that will help pollinators that overwinter. And we like the pollinators. We want to keep them around. Remove any invasive weeds that have come up. And you're going to want to dig them up and dispose of them or smother them with the tarps or garden cloth. Because if you move them to a compost pile, they're probably just going to come up again in the spring. Now would be a good time to add manure or compost. If you're thinking of planting cover crops, now is also a good time. Rye, vetch, and clover are all good crops. And then they'll help prevent erosion. They'll break up the compacted areas. They'll break up compacted areas and increase the organic matter. And they'll also help add nutrients to the soil. You'll want to think about fall pruning. You want to prune roses, rosemary, thyme, sage, asparagus, and rhubarb. And then blackberries also benefit from a fall prune. It's also a good time to divide your perennials, and it'll help you cut down on the time you have to pull volunteers out in the spring if you do it now. And you'll also want to think about what worked and what didn't work. So if you have something that didn't work for you, you have all winter to think about how you can change it for next spring. And if you're not ready to be done, you can plant fall veggies. Beets, baby bok choy, broccoli, green beans, especially the bush varieties, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, kale, lettuce, peas, and radishes can all be planted for a fall harvest. And with radishes, I read that a lot of the issues you have with them in the spring, they like taste woody and whatnot, you don't have that in the fall. So they're a good fall crop. And then lettuce and radishes, they can be planted late into September. We're getting a little past the point to plant everything else, but you can definitely plant lettuce and radishes. And then you'll have to provide some protection from an early frost. But if you do, you should be able to harvest well into the winter months. And then since we're coming off the hotter summer months, if you're going to plant seeds, you're going to want to plant them a bit deeper than the package suggests. And it'll help you get down to the cooler, moist soil. The crops also last longer in the fall. So broccoli, cabbage, and kale can live in a garden for months in the fall after reaching maturity. And then spinach, cilantro, and lettuce hold their quality for a lot longer. So.
Yeah. Now, what if you get a snow or a frost?
If it's a hard frost, it might not do very well. But like a pretty light frost, you could protect everything and keep going.
All right.
And then a lot of the country is in a drought. Not us specifically, but parts of the U.S. and a lot of the world is. There's definitely an ongoing drought in the West and in Texas. And I looked before I came. I think that it's not as bad in Texas anymore, but it's still not great. It's terrible, but we're finding some really interesting things. So in Texas, a lake bed dried up and exposed dinosaur tracks. They're from I'm going to say it wrong, an Archaeopteryx. Kind of stood like a T-Rex, and it lived 113 million years ago. It's usually these tracks are filled with sediment on the bottom of a lake bed, so you can't see them, which is really interesting. A fleet of World War II ships was exposed in the Danby River. As many of 20 of them have emerged. Their metal hulls are still intact, and they're actually Nazi warships. In 1944, the Soviets counterattacked, and as the Nazis were fleeing, they decided to scuttle a bunch of ships. So this is the first time that these ships have been seen since 1944, which is really cool historically. They still do suppose kind of a threat. Since they were scuttled and not blown up, they're probably still full of munitions. I don't know, it's interesting. I've been finding a lot of these interesting things. In Spain, there's a Stonehenge-like formation that was found. It dates back to 5000 BC. Since 1963, it's only been visible 4 times. In Rome, the remains of an ancient bridge were exposed. A trio of Buddhist statues, believed to be 600 years old, were found in the Yangtze River. In Iraq, they found a 3,400-year-old city. They pulled an old World War II bomb out of the Po River. In the UK, they found old World War I trenches. You could see the pattern of them. And then in Lake Mead, they're finding bodies.
Yeah.
And like I said, all of this is it's really cool historically to see all of this stuff. But it's also really terrible because it means we're pretty dry in a lot of places. On the other side of this, ranchers in Texas are culling a massive amount of cattle. So hay cubes, pellets, protein sources, it's all double the cost of what it was last year, so it's hard. Auction houses have said that there's a lot of cattle going through. And then long term, this is probably not going to be good because there'll be a smaller number of cattle available. I'm sure beef prices will go up. And the USDA reported that cattle herds are actually down 2.4% nationwide. And then we have the bird migration. The fall bird migration should soon be ramping up. I did this yesterday. So last night there were reported 414 million birds were expected to migrate last night. You can actually go to a website called birdcast.info, and it'll show you a live migration map. It'll tell you how many birds are expected to be migrating in the next few nights. It's kind of interesting. And then if you're feeding hummingbirds, definitely keep your feeders up for 2 weeks after you see the last one, just so any late birds can feed. And they start migrating in August or September, so they should be pretty well on the move by now.
A lot of them are gone for the season.
Yeah. That's all I had today.
Okay. All right. Well, folks, again, we're with Meghan Pettit with the Whiteside County, Whiteside County Soil Water Conservation District. And I know last week we kind of went through a few things that a year ago or so we were talking about here. And let me kind of snoop through the list here. Now, shows here that archery deer season.
Yep, in Illinois it starts August 1st.
Okay, so that's been going on for a while.
Or October 1st.
Oh, October,
sorry.
Okay. And and it says runs through January 16th. The deer gun season.
It'll be the weekend before Thanksgiving and then the weekend after.
Okay. Oh, let's see, waterfowl.
They start sometime in October. I think, don't quote me, but I think it's the 22nd. I looked it up, but I can't remember the exact date.
Now I've got something on here that says December through December 21st. So, small game, squirrels, rabbits.
That one I haven't looked up, so I'm not sure about that one.
All right. Let's see. Beavers, trapping for beavers?
Yeah, I'm not too up on my trapping.
Aren't you? Okay.
No.
Well, I'll give you that assignment for next
I'll
month.
have to look it up for next week.
Okay. And turkey permits. Now, there's a turkey, what do they do,
There's
lottery?
a lottery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how's that work? Do you know that?
I'm new to the hunting, so you got to
Okay.
be nice.
All
I'm
right.
not 100% sure. I can look it up for next week, though,
Okay.
or next month.
And what else do we have here? Yeah, you mentioned pruning and thinning out your trees, bushes. Forest management also is something to take care of or to keep in mind this time of year. And as we've mentioned through the years many, many times, fall is a good time for planting. And
Yep.
whether it's
Yep.
something in your timber in your woods or something around the home that you want to
Yep.
get in the ground before it gets too cold.
Yep.
This is a time to start thinking about that too. So
I know walleye fishing is getting better because the temperatures are getting colder. I have a guy in the office has been telling me about that. So, yeah.
well, what have you learned?
have
I'm
I
sure a
learned?
whole lot, but since you
Oh,
started
man, I've
here
learned an awful lot.
like May, I think.
I think I started in March. So I've learned an awful lot about CRP. I've learned an awful lot about seeding rates for grasses and natives, and I've absorbed a lot of information.
Oh, good.
in
Yeah,
this-
well, there's
in
a
this
lot of
6 months.
information
Yep.
to absorb in your job.
Yep.
Now, how's things looking in the fields and
They're
timbers
good.
here? Are
They're
they-
actually starting to harvest here. I've seen a couple people start, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, everything looks pretty good.
Mhm.
Green, lush. It's been
Yeah.
one of those weird years where we think we're in a drought, never going to get any rain, and then,
And then we have all this rain.
yeah, and then we get a bunch, and like I
Yep.
said, it's kept things looking nice and green
Yep.
all year long.
Yep.
Well, what's on your agenda for next month? Any particular things that are coming up?
I have a couple of trainings to go to and a few meetings, but that's it for now.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Just keeping you busy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, real good. Okay, hey, again, folks, we've been with Meghan Pettit from Whiteside County, and good to see you again.
Good to
and
see
we'll
you, too.
talk to you next month.
Yep.
The Whiteside County Soil and Water Conservation District program is heard at 9:15 a.m. on the second Tuesday of every month right here on KROS.